Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of Business Relations Sports with CA and KJ. We are your hosts, CA and KJ, Chris P. Austin, Chris Johnson. And today we're going to get into a whole lot of things. So right now we're in the early December month, 2024. 2025 is coming soon. A whole lot's happening in sports, a whole lot's happening in business, as well as relationships. So we'll jump right in, starting to talk about volleyball, a subject that both of us hold near and dear to the heart. Both of us have played volleyball for a very long time, from the high school level to the collegiate level to the professional level. So it's something that we still have in our lives to this day. And a lot is happening right now with the women's NCAA heading into their tournament. So everybody just got finished playing their tournament championships or their conference championships, and now it's about to be the NCAA tournament, which is a big time for women's volleyball. It's a one and done tournament, so very exciting. The game is growing. Multiple schools are having it to where the very first time they're able to break attendance records, the very first time they're able to get TV viewership records up and up and up, which tells you that more people are viewing the game, which of course is going to make it so that more people are playing the game, which of course is going to make it that more people are investing in the game. So that being said, KJ, why don't you kick us off with what's interesting to you about women's college volleyball right now?
The crazy part for me is simply how many matches are just being 1 and 3.
Yeah.
Like I saw a ton of matches and I was looking, I'm like, I thought this was supposed to be like one of the more, I guess, competitive years.
Hmm.
And it's just surprising to see how many rounds where it's like, okay, first round 3-0 or first round 3-1 and then second round 3-0. I'm like, why is this happening so often? I mean, I think the teams are more comparable now than they were in the past,
Hmm.
but losing 3-0 makes it look like this.
Yeah, I mean, volleyball is an interesting sport to me because of the fact that you get to reset the score, right? It keeps the interest and potentially keeps the fans in the building longer, where in basketball, a lot of times if a team's up by 30 points, people leave the game early.
Mm,
You see the same situation in football if a team goes up really big
yeah.
because that score stays. But in a sport like volleyball, where you could get beat 25-8 and then literally come back and win 25-23 and it's
Hmm.
still 1-1,
Yeah.
that's an intriguing thing for sports watchers and sports viewers. But you're right in terms of that first round and second round. A lot of times in the NCAA, you do find that there are these like beatdowns
Yeah.
essentially, where a team is mopping up another team. But such good matchups early on, like a game that I was really in tune to and first heard about and then had to go watch the replay was USC versus Texas.
Yeah.
And Madison Skinner, is an all-world player. I mean, right now she's in commercials. Last year she won the national championship. She's been coming up and up and up. And Texas has had like a rocky start this year. They've
Yeah.
lost some matches to lower-seeded teams.
Mm.
And USC has had a pretty good year. They picked up a transfer, Ali Baton Horse, who's a really big time player. Mia Tuaninga, who's like a really great setter, who's played there for multiple years. It ended up being, a really big win for Texas. Texas came
Yeah.
in and crushed, and that just showed me the experience level. And that's the big thing in NCAA, from personal experience and then to watching it the last couple of years. When you have that experience of knowing how to win, knowing how to operate in other people's gyms, knowing how to be on the road and have success when the lights turn on
Yeah.
is a really big deal. But what I'm most intrigued about the NCAA tournament is how it's going to continue to improve viewership. Something I'm really on right now with the women's game and the men's game as well is all of the development that's happening right now with the professional teams, the college teams, even down to the youth now. There's so
Yeah.
much more social media around it. There's so much more television media around it, and that's going to just create more and more opportunities because it creates NIL dollars. It creates people wanting to pour money into it, like
Hmm.
what's happening with Love Volleyball,
Yeah. Pro
League
leagues.
One Volleyball, and then it's going to be a trickle down, just like it is for all
Yeah.
the other major professional sports. So I'm excited to see that for volleyball.
I'm excited to see the way that's going to look when it goes into the pro game because they're still trying to figure out how many leagues we're going to have. I know
Mm-hmm.
that there's multiple organizations that are trying to create a women's pro league, and so I'm just waiting for it to kind of go through and file down into one
Mm-hmm.
so then everything can funnel into it when you come out of college.
Yeah, I always think it's gonna be tricky to create the like one league type situation because volleyball has proven to be the sport where everybody wants to have their own thing.
Yeah.
Right? You even see that with club, how many like little clubs pop up, and that
Hmm.
was the big complaint about
Yeah.
10 years ago is things are getting watered down because in every state it used to be okay, all the best players grouped together.
Yeah.
We play at this club, and then we go battle against other states, and then it
Hmm.
started to become every individual athlete wanted to be the star player.
Yeah.
So then there was all these little pop-up clubs with whoever
Hmm.
had their favorite coach or their favorite club director or
Yeah.
whatever, and then it started to dilute the talent. But Now you're in a situation where it's positive that there's so many clubs because there's so many people flooding into the game. So
Hmm.
many young girls who are getting involved in the game and young boys as well. And there's just a growth there. But heading into the professional rankings, if you have a situation where you can get the better players in America to stay in America and
Yeah.
people start to get that viewership, that's going to be the largest thing that grows the game because if you say you're like us and you know who a Jordan Larson is, a Kelly,
Hmm.
um, Jordan Larson, or see, I'm already blanking on names, Kelsey Robinson, Justine Wong-Orantes,
Yeah.
some of the bigger name players who've been to multiple Olympics.
Mm.
We know them because we've been in the gym around them, seen them play. We've watched them grow from college onto the pro
Yeah.
teams for the USA. But ultimately, they do go overseas. So there's a lot of young players who would have no idea who a lot of the up and coming players are, even if they're the best in the world.
Yeah.
And so now you won't even have to just be that top 12 or top 14 best in the world. You could be, the 60th or 70th ranked
Yeah.
player in college and still get notoriety because you're getting drafted into this pro league here. So where like an Asia O'Neal
Hmm.
was killing it in the women's college game
Yeah.
2 years ago, so popular, slide queen, Texas, Jermaine O'Neal's daughter, all this
Hmm.
branding. And then a lot of times that would start to get lost when she goes overseas. And then there's the brief sense where she comes back. And if she's one of the top four middles in the
Yeah.
country, she gets notoriety.
Hmm.
But now, okay, number one pick for the American League. It makes little girls go, oh, I want to be like that. I can
Hmm.
see her. I can go fly or drive and watch her in
Yeah.
America. And they can see that growth pattern. And that's going to make them want to engage more because once they see her, just like the way somebody sees a LeBron James or a
Hmm.
Steph Curry, they'll go, I want to be like that. And so, what do I need to do to be like that? I have to train how she trained. I have to train where she trained. I have to go visit where she is. I have to go watch her in person,
Yeah.
which people haven't really had that opportunity, right? Because it's not in America.
That's true. And I think even adding on to that, like so many players have to go overseas just to really make any kind of money.
Hmm.
So there's not really a choice. The only other way is if you decide to stay and play beach, which depending on what you want to do as an indoor player, that's a tough transition. So I definitely think it's good if you got our top players, they end up staying here because then they end up having the social media following. They get to be seen on TV, right? And also they end up being everywhere to be seen, which
Yeah.
is super important for us.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a video 2 days ago with Kelsey Robinson or Kelsey Cook. I don't know what she goes by now, Kelsey Robinson or Kelsey Cook. But she was in a practice. I don't know if she's playing for the Texas team or
Hmm.
which state she's in, but it's one of the Love volleyball teams.
Yeah.
And it was like a video of her just getting ready, training for the season and
Hmm.
everything. And I had this thought to myself of like, people will never get to see that. Most of the
Yeah.
time people are waiting for literally this media from another country
Yeah.
to post her on their media and have something like Volleyball World
Yeah.
repost it, right?
Exactly.
And so now again, if you have like a Haley Washington who's a great middle, if you
Hmm.
have a Asia O'Neal, if you have a Kelsey Robinson, a Justine Wong-Orantes, if they begin to get in America, although I believe Justine's overseas right now, if
Yeah.
they start to get into America and play consistently in front of fans, it's gonna create growth of the game because young kids are gonna go, I can touch it now. I can
Yeah.
see it all the time. I
It's
can watch it.
tangible. It's
It's just
real.
like, I mean, just like watching MLB, NBA, NFL.
Mm.
These kids who play Pop Warner, they'll literally watch a game on Sunday and they'll go to their Pop Warner practice on Tuesday and go, "Oh, did you see that run that Saquon Barkley had? I
Yeah.
want to emulate that. I want to do that reverse jump backwards
Yeah.
hurdle and try that out." And if you have 500, 5,000, 50,000 kids trying that in
Hmm.
America, that's going to build the game because other kids are going to watch that and go,
Yeah.
"Oh, I want to do what that kid did," or the most athletic kid on my team. And honestly, we haven't really had that with volleyball. Volleyball's
No.
been continuously having to start back at the bottom every Olympic year because it always builds heading in the Olympic year, right?
Hmm.
People get excited. Oh, Kerry Walsh, Misty May, April Ross, Alex Kleinman,
Yeah.
Phil Dalhausser, Tal Rogers on the beach. And then indoor, they get excited. They watch the national team because they're usually good. The women are either in that bronze, silver, or gold ranking.
Yeah.
The
Yeah. The
men,
mix.
gold in '08, couple bronzes since then.
Mm.
But then, like, the Olympics happens, and literally it goes back to the bottom.
Nobody remembers.
Yeah, it goes back to the
We
bottom.
forget
People
quick.
don't even know names. If I said to the average, forget the average person walking on the street, if I said to the average volleyball player right now, name me six people on the men's national team, I don't think most would be able to do it. They
No.
would go Micah Christensen, Matt Anderson, Eric Shoji, and then, blank. And that's no
Yeah.
disrespect to the people on the teams. We know their names, right? And we want to see them grow and build and continue to rise. But there's got to be more notoriety around the sport, and that's happening right now. So it's cool.
I'm with it.
Let's
Yeah.
go. All right, so college, who do you have in your Final Four? We've talked about this on our last couple episodes. We're actually in the tournament now. You're getting to see a little bit of sprinkle of these teams. Who do you have in the Final Four?
Well, I already said that I had Nebraska and Wisconsin in the mix, and
Hmm.
I think they were lower. I think one of them was outside of the top 10.
Hmm.
Like when we were talking about in the beginning, I think one of them was barely inside of the top 10. I
Hmm.
still have those two for sure.
Hmm.
Obviously Pitt, because Pitt is freaking scary.
Yeah.
But the last one is that one's gonna be interesting because I'm looking at Penn State and I'm looking at Texas and I don't know, it's really interesting, especially with the Penn State situation because Russ Rose is not there anymore.
Right.
So I mean, obviously he's like Godfather coach of volleyball.
Right.
But I'm gonna say Penn State in the mix.
Okay. Yeah, looking at the rankings here for those listening to this, you have Penn State versus Marquette coming up, Pitt versus Oregon coming up, Kentucky versus Missouri, Texas versus Creighton. That's the top half of the bracket. Bottom half, Stanford versus Florida, Wisconsin, Texas A&M, Dayton versus Nebraska, Purdue versus Louisville. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna go with Pitt for sure from that first ranking. I have Pitt beating Oregon and then Pitt beating Kentucky to make it to the Final Four.
All right.
And then I'm gonna call upset Texas beating Penn State. I
Okay.
think Madison Skinner, just watching her in that game against SC, like, and knowing from personal experience what it's like to have that experience having been,
Yeah.
if she can pull up some of those other girls and go, no, I'm going to show you the way, she can have a dominant performance. So I'm calling Texas there. So that'll be that half of the bracket, the Final Four. Bottom half, you know what? I'd really like to see Stanford go. Louisville's good, but I'm going to say Stanford. I think they'll have a tough game against Florida, and then I think they'll play really well against Louisville.
Yeah.
And then, ooh, Nebraska, Wisconsin. Are those two going to meet? I'm going to go with who won the last meeting between them? When I was
Mm,
watching that, I think Nebraska, did they win the last meeting between them?
I
I'm
don't
going to
know.
go
I have to
with
check.
I'm gonna go with Nebraska. It's hard for me to bet against Charlie Furbringer, but it's freshman, first year in there, leading that team. Charlie's a really good player, but I'm gonna go with Nebraska. So my final four, I'm gonna take Pitt, I'm gonna take Texas,
Texas,
I'm gonna take
Stanford.
Stanford, and Nebraska. That's what I
Okay.
got. Whew, it's gonna be interesting.
It's
I
gonna
can't
be
wait
a
to
tight
watch that.
fit.
Big names. I want to see Cami Minor do really well at Stanford. Shout out to her. Shout out to Elia Rubin. Yeah. Elena Ogley, the libero over there.
Hmm.
Pitt, Tori Stafford, she's a SoCal kid. Olivia on the right side, Babcock. It's gonna be interesting. Want to check it out.
Babcock
All
is
right.
crazy.
Yeah, she is.
Crazy.
She's nice. She's nice. So heading into the NFL, right now it is the cold season for the NFL. You see people play in the snow, play in the sleet,
I'm good.
play in the rain. This
Keep
is
it
one of the
going.
reasons I do not play football. It's not that I'm nervous or scared about weather. I just choose to play indoors. I appreciate it more. It's for me. So with the NFL football, I watched this game where the Cleveland Browns were playing maybe the Steelers or somebody like that, and literally the whole field is white, and Jameis Winston is running around making plays, and the whole field is white. And I just have to ask myself, like, why would you choose this? If I had all the athleticism in the world, why would you choose this? But something I've come to understand about sports is when you love something, you love something. So
This is
can't
true.
hate, the people who are playing football out there. More power to you. It's probably the most watched sport right now in America. And man, people are killing it. I don't know, maybe baseball has them, but
Hardest way to get rich.
yeah, it's tough. It's tough. So football wise, again, we're not even going to discuss the Cowboys today. That is just like not
Can
even a
we
topic
not?
worth broaching.
Can we not?
But let's go on to some more interesting topics. So the New York Jets, they have Aaron Rodgers. There's been this battle verbally over the past couple years when Tom Brady was doing his thing, and even back when Peyton Manning was playing for the Broncos. You know, is there an age that a quarterback stops being good, or when are they going to fall off a cliff? There was a big thing Max Kellerman back when he was on First Take.
Yeah.
Fall off a cliff. Tom Brady's going to fall off a cliff. And Tom Brady after won the Super Bowl literally after Max Kellerman said that with the Buccaneers, but
Yeah.
then he didn't play so great after that.
Yeah.
So looking at Aaron Rodgers right now, who hasn't looked so good this year, People forget the whole concept of coming off an injury. Like coming off an Achilles tear is no
That's
joke.
scary, man.
Coming off of not playing a full season is
Yeah.
no joke. You know, having had experience as a professional athlete of starting a season missing it because of an injury, you don't just come back and like
Yeah.
miss
Like I'm the
season
guy
4,
again.
and especially not at 40 years old, right? So that the fact that he hasn't had that rhythm to be able to get into it matters, but they've had so much turbulence over there, different coaches and the insertion of
Hmm.
um, Devonte Adams
Yeah.
coming over there, and their defense hasn't been playing great, and used to lean on their defense.
Hmm.
So the Jets haven't been great, but who has been really good is the Bills. Right now, I believe Josh Allen, and unless there's some update that I haven't seen, Josh Allen's supposed to be number one in the MVP voting. Is that still the case?
I think he's right up there. I haven't been checking on that, but they've got one of the best records. They're 10-3,
Yeah,
so they're literally like proven to be a team that's on the rise.
yeah.
But even to talk about the Aaron Rodgers situation, it just proves how much lack of talent there is at the quarterback position in general. If we're talking about we need to keep a 40-year-old in the league because we don't have any other younger quarterbacks
Mhm.
anywhere
Right,
coming up that we would feel comfortable taking his spot.
right,
That shows you, if you look around the NFL, there's not that many great quarterbacks.
right.
And it's weird to me because we have a full system. We got a full high school system, a college system that feeds into the NFL, and it just shows you how difficult the quarterback
Yeah,
position is
I
to
mean,
play.
we talked about that a few episodes ago. What's the most difficult position? And you and I both had quarterback in our conversation there.
Mm,
And just the more and more I learn about the game, like I said, I work with a couple quarterbacks at this point, just on their psychology, and it's such an interesting thing. Like the more I watch, it's like my eyes are more open now to decision making, understand like when the rush is coming, when the rush isn't coming, trying to keep your players on the same page, knowing the whole playbook, managing the clock, understanding when to go for it, when not to go for it, when to throw in windows, when not to throw in windows. Like I was watching a college football game the other day, back and forth game, really interesting. Who was it playing? Because they threw a pick at the end. Gosh darn it. Penn State versus
the
Oregon. Penn State versus Oregon.
that's a good matchup.
And it was back
Yeah.
and forth all the way. And Oregon's the number one team, undefeated. Penn State's only lost one game. And Oregon's doing really well, scores a touchdown, but they give Penn State one opportunity. Like Oregon goes 3 and out,
Mm,
has to kick the ball. Penn State gets one more chance, and they're down by 8. So it's at the end of the game. Penn State quarterback kind of throws like a slot ball. The guy catches it, gets a couple yards, and the very next play, there's probably like a minute and a half left on the clock and he throws like a 50-yard ball. One of the most impressive plays I've seen all year. The DB, defensive back, ends up running with the wide receiver, running with him, turns his neck, sees the ball, kind of shields the wide receiver, so becomes an offensive player.
yeah.
Shields the wide receiver with his body, like lets the ball fall in his lap, boom, catches it, interception, game
Game
over. And
over.
I thought about like I see so many of these quarterbacks, like Shedeur Sanders had the same type of situation when they were
Mm,
playing K-State earlier in the year,
yeah.
where at the end of the game he tried to throw like a 50-yard ball and
Yeah.
get like a PI or a catch or something like that, and it didn't end up working out. And I keep thinking like when I watch like the Patrick Mahomeses and the Tom Brady's, who are great, obviously in-game
Mm,
decision makers, they tend to throw right like 3 or 4 short routes, get out of bounds, short route, get out of bounds.
yeah.
They might try one shot, but a lot of times it's like chip away, chip away, chip away, get close to the end zone,
Yeah.
and then let's go for it. Where this year, even Patrick Mahomes had one of these that ended up working out in his favor. But late in the game, with a decent amount of time left, a minute and a half, they're like throwing the bomb and trying to
Mm,
like catch the defense off guard, and then it's
yeah.
not working out. So of course there's rhyme and reason to the way they do these things. But you being a football person, like, what are your thoughts on quarterbacks doing that specifically? Like trying to go for it all, when there's so much time left.
I think there's the term we call it in football. It's called take a shot.
Hmm.
That's literally what it is. So it's like you've been going short, you've been going mid, you've been doing some play action,
Hmm.
you've been doing whatever you've been doing, but almost every team in the league has somebody who can take the top off of a defense. We say that in the term of you're a really, really fast wide receiver
Hmm.
or even a running back. And you're like, okay, we're going to take a shot. We're going to trust that you can go up and get the ball or trust that you can run past someone
Hmm.
and go and get the ball. And I don't really have an issue with it as long as you know who you're throwing to.
Right.
If you're throwing to the fastest guy on your team and he's proven to beat people pretty often, if you're lucky enough to be Tom Brady and have Randy Moss on your team for that 1 year, like, then go ahead and throw the ball. I think the opportunities, if they're there, then go and take them. And also, you should know who you're matched up against.
Yeah.
Are you playing against a really good DB? Or do you know if the safety is going to rotate over and help? Or are you able to set it up to where you run everything and you have all the safeties shift, and then it's just you in the corner? I think if it's you versus the corner, you go and take the shot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm just getting more and more educated about the game of football, but something I imagine as a struggle is playing in the cold. And of course, it's like anything. When you play for 10 years and you play something for 15 years, you get used to stuff. Like we've played in Finland, the most cold place people could imagine. Like walking outside, literally you walk out of the door, your hands freeze. Like you have to wear gloves walking around. So
-30
it's not like you
Celsius.
can't find ways to make it happen, but playing outside in the snow in Buffalo, it's like
3 hours.
yeah,
3-hour game.
it's so interesting to me. I don't care. Like, oh, we bring heaters over. They have jackets. They have like. There's nothing you can tell me where.
Wind chill.
Yeah, my hand's gonna feel comfortable gripping the ball and like feeling that accuracy. But again, that's why they make the big bucks. And I think if I trained it, I could do it. Quarterback. I'd like to be a quarterback. I'd like to try that out.
You couldn't pay me enough to be a quarterback. I don't care if you offer me all the money in the world. I'm not playing quarterback in a college game. Not playing quarterback in an NFL game. You got me messed up.
Not taking those hits.
No, you got me glazed up.
Cat's coming around the corner.
For real, like and no quarterback awareness too, so you don't know when the time is running out. So you just get.
The worst is when you're watching it on TV and the pocket starts to shrink and the guy wraps around the back and you're like, he doesn't see him. No. He doesn't see him. Luckily for quarterbacks now, the rules have changed and you can't rarely do you find the defensive player who's like, I don't care about the rules and I don't care about the fine. I'm gonna try to put my weight on this guy. Like they've changed the rules, but man, 10 years ago, playing quarterback in the NFL, these dudes are trying to break your ribs.
And that's the funny part, because the commentators are like, once you play quarterback long enough, there should be quarterback feel. Like you should feel like something or I'm running out of time. Okay, I'm past my 3 or 4 seconds.
Yeah.
I need to either throw it away, throw it to somebody, or run.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you see him sit in the pocket, and you're like, bro, you've been out of time 2 seconds ago.
Yeah, literally. So pockets closing, and they start to do that little. Take this out.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah, good times. Okay, so transitioning NBA. Probably my favorite sport to watch. Volleyball, NBA right here, but it definitely become my favorite sport to watch. Even though there's some things I would like to see different about the NBA, I definitely am not a big fan of how they call fouls now. I think everything is a foul, and it's pretty tricky to tell the difference. Somebody might drive the lane and bump their body and have their arm raked and lay it up and it's no foul, but then if a person does a step back and then has their elbow touched, it's a foul. For me, there's too much ambiguity in the game, but that being said, it's still interesting to me because sometimes ambiguity makes interest and popcorn moments for the audience. So in the NBA, the thing I keep going back to is how many talented players there are in the league right now. Every team has somebody with, I can score 30 points, I can get 10 assists, I can get rebounds, and there's an argument to be made, it's not as much of a team game, it's not as much as move the ball, there's more ISO, there's more pull-up threes, but the talent level, I've never seen it how it is now. Every team, really has people who can do it at a high level, and there's teams who have superstars who are ranked 10th in their league type situation. Yeah. So, look at the 76ers, right? You have 3 literally all-stars on your team, but
can't play together.
Yeah, not doing it that well so far.
Can't play together.
NBA, where are you right now? What have you been seeing in the league? What things you paying attention to down the stretch as we get to the back end of this NBA Cup?
I'm just looking at the Cup, and I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of similarities here. There's a lot of teams that are 3-1, 2-2, trying to get into those playoffs so they can get the extra money. I think you can make 100, 200K or something like that.
Yeah, I think everybody makes 500,000 for the winner last year. I don't know what it is this year, but last year everybody won 500,000 on the league.
Yeah, it's like an extra little pot of money, which is good. For me, I think the league is always fun to see, but it's just become like a Curry league.
Yeah, a lot of threes.
The Curry effect, and it's not clearly nobody is Curry,
Right.
period.
Yeah.
So there's only so much you can do with that. What's tough is that everybody is a stretch now.
Mm-hmm.
So you got your stretch center, your stretch power forward. The league has gotten smaller,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's not as many 7-footers as there used to be. There's a few, but everybody else is like, no, no, no. Now we can all play defense. Now we can shoot the three. Now we can pass. Now we can all rebound. So it's kind of like a 3-and-D type of league. To me, it's just really weird though. I'm like, I don't understand why, since everybody's shooting threes, the defenses aren't built for that. Like,
Right.
it's really weird. Like, if you watch a basketball game, everybody's still like protecting paint.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see a lot of people like stay home and they'll come off screens and they'll move. And then you're like, how does this person end up wide open?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you guys just almost switch everything?
Right.
Like, if you guys switch everything, then screens almost don't matter.
Right.
So it's just interesting, like the way the defenses are set up, because they're shooting so many threes, like what, 40, 50 threes a
A
game. I'm
lot.
like, if they're hitting, shoot, even like 40%,
It's a wrap.
30%, you're
Yeah.
dismantled.
Yeah, it's a wrap. No, I agree. And the only time you really see that switch concept, you really get in trouble with it is when you have like a Steph Curry and get switched on to Rudy Gobert, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I'm just gonna put you in the blender and like
Oh,
lay
for
it up
sure.
on you type of
I'm gonna put
situation.
you to bed.
But for the most part, when you're talking like the twos through the fours,
Yeah.
everything's almost
Everything should
switchable, and that
switch.
to me is the benefit of having like a big or a small.
Yeah.
Like, and we're not in a space in the league where it's great to have like a small person from a defensive standpoint, unless they can shoot the lights out like a Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Um, like you start to see, and no disrespect to Chris Paul, he just literally is number two all time on the assists. He's a great player, but the Chris Paul type player doesn't have the same effect in the league anymore because the league isn't looking for somebody to hold the ball, pound it, make the lob decisions, assist it. It's more like everybody in the team needs to be able to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to be able to shoot the three,
Yeah.
also get to the lane, play defense with length,
Mm-hmm.
and then not make stupid decisions and hack people at the wrong time. Like,
Agreed.
and
Agreed.
so if you have more people who are in that like a Jaden McDaniels type build,
It's a 6'6", 6'7" league now.
mm-hmm,
If we boil it down,
mm-hmm,
you want to be 6'6", 6'7", shoot 30 to 40% from beyond the arc, play really good defense, be able to go in the lane and dunk,
mm-hmm,
and then be able to grab 4 or 5 rebounds. If you're exceptional, grab more.
mm-hmm.
But it's more of like, can we get the heights more similar, because everything can be switched,
Yeah.
and then we got 1 or 2 guys that are like 6'9", 6'10", that go and grab rebounds.
Exactly. And like you're always gonna have the anomalies, the Jokic, who like I'm huge, but I also have, ball
Yeah.
skills and touch and all this stuff, and Wemby, right? But those are gonna be the superstars. If you
Yeah.
want to be a good role player, it is that space where it's no longer like the Derek Fisher is what you used to look for.
Yeah.
Now it's more like a Jaden McDaniels type is gonna be like the prototypical role player, right? Like, hey, he's not gonna be our superstar, but we need this guy to win type situation.
You want a like a Jimmy Butler
Yeah,
body
like a
type for
Trevor
a lot
Ariza.
of a lot of the players in your league to look like that type of person.
Mhm.
Like, okay, you're not gonna really put them in a blender. They're gonna do what they do defensively, and then they're gonna catch the ball wide open,
Yeah.
hit the three.
Love it. Okay, so NBA Cup. It's pretty tricky to tell, honestly. Like the Celtics are gonna continue to be like the quiet top dog. Like I believe a lot of people do expect them to be in that mix or potentially repeat, but people don't talk about them a lot because they're
Nope.
not like the sexy team for some reason.
Yeah.
But people want to talk about the Lakers, who want to talk about the Knicks, their big cities type of situation. Then also people are wanting to talk about the Timberwolves because Anthony Edwards, like there's a big push to make him the face of the league. You can
Yeah.
feel it. Like,
Oh yeah.
and people love that Steph Curry started off the year well,
Yeah.
after losing Klay Thompson. The Golden State Warriors were doing their thing. Oklahoma City Thunder, again, they're not like the sexy pick for people,
Shea
but they're
Gilgeous.
playing so well. Even without Chet Holmgren, they're playing so well. So it just goes back to the team concept we've talked about in the past. Like when you have that team concept and you have the ability to work together and galvanize,
Yeah.
then you're going to do well. And if you can do well during the regular season, you set yourself up at least to do well in the playoffs. So
Yeah.
you could end up being the 1 seed and get a total landmine as an 8 seed, and it can all be for naught. But most of the time, the 1 seed and the 2 seed, they do advance in the playoffs. That's just how
Oh,
it goes.
100%. Once again, it's just a team chemistry conversation.
Yeah.
Like it's not a superstar conversation.
Mhm.
Like it's not put these 3 or 4 superstars together and then they're just going to gel and play amazingly. You're forgetting there's only one ball,
Yeah.
right? So it's like maybe we get like 2 superstars and then we get an all-star, and then there's role players.
Yeah.
So then you guys have to make it fit.
Yeah.
If it fits in that situation, then yeah, your team chemistry should be fine. But if not, everybody wants the ball. Nobody's like, nah, I'm not gonna take the step back. I'm like, then you're gonna have problems with the entire team.
Right.
So that's the issue.
Okay. So if you had to pick one team who's going to win the NBA Cup, what would you say?
I don't know. I'm looking at this list right now. This is a tough decision. I'm gonna go with the Bucks.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with the
Let's see. Ooh,
Giannis.
it's already there,
Giannis.
huh? Wow.
Giannis
The
Antetokounmpo.
Celtics aren't in?
They're not?
No, apparently not. I mean, if this is accurate, it says OKC's in the semifinals. This is 2024, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's set up top,
Las
right?
Vegas, yeah. So semifinals OKC, and then Rockets versus Golden State, Knicks versus Hawks, and then Bucks.
Well, yeah, because the Hawks were at the top of their list. The Bucks were at the top. The Knicks were at the top,
Mhm.
and the Warriors were at the top. Thunder was at the top. Rockets are at the top.
Interesting.
So yeah, and the Bucks are at the top of theirs.
Okay,
So
I'm gonna
with the
say,
Bucks,
yeah, Bucks are hard to go against. You might be right about that, but just to
yeah.
have some differentiation, I'm gonna go with Golden State. I'm gonna go with Golden State. I think it's a tough pick because Golden State could totally win it or be like last.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna go with Golden State. I think the Bucks is a good pick though. If you wouldn't have picked the Bucks, I'd probably pick the Bucks on that. But
Be
Golden
honest.
State, I'm gonna go with. All right. So music. We're gonna talk about this in music today. How artists get popular. I've noticed in music now, although there's artists who have popularity, Taylor Swift,
Mhm.
SZA, Drake and Kendrick Lamar situation, yada yada. That's not gonna change. But there was a time when CDs were around, people were burning CDs and CDs where I did feel like there was like a longevity of an artist's
Mhm.
popularity. Like they were hanging on to it and it held and it held and it held
Yeah.
and people were playing that CD. And now because we have like the 24-hour news cycle and 24-hour ticker, it's like, okay, somebody will be like hot and then it's
Yeah.
off, and then they'll be hot and then it's off. And
Yeah.
so Billie Eilish was like crushing it, and I've heard from athletes who I work with, Billie Eilish is still crushing it.
Really?
But I haven't heard Billie Eilish's name, in so
Yeah.
long. Or there'll be a situation where like Taylor Swift was all the
Yeah.
talk this summer, like the Eras tour, going here, going there, and again, she's probably still touring and still crushing it and killing it and still making music. But like you just don't hear the name every day, it's
Yeah.
always something new. It's this new song comes out with Soak City comes
Yeah.
out, and then this other song comes out by this person, that person. It's always switching. So popularity in music, traditionally used to be some kind of CD would come out and or single, and then the radio stations would
Yeah.
play it on repeat, right? And then that person would go in on concert, and it would build and build and build.
Mhm.
And so now you still have radio stations. You still have things being played on repeat on the radio, but people listen to the radio less, right? Because there's more
Yeah.
Apple Music, there's Spotify, there's YouTube. People
Yeah.
utilize these things and they go seek out, specific. And a lot of it happens through social media, through word of
Mhm.
mouth. Kids going, hey, oh, this new, like I had a kid this morning who said they're listening to Tyler the Creator.
Yeah.
And then I had this kid literally come in here last week, and I remember she's like, "Can you play Tyler the Creator?" And like clicked on this album, and I was
Yeah.
like, "I don't listen to this generally," but
Yeah.
I let her play it, and that's just how it circulates now.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different. So,
And
uh,
he's been out for a while too.
yeah,
So that's the
yeah,
funny part. Like
yeah,
even adding on to that, like, cause we coach college kids, we
hmm
coach high school kids, even some in middle school,
hmm
and they're like, "Oh, you heard that new Drake?" And we're like,
yeah,
"Time out, time out. Drake was out before you were even alive.
literally,
Like Drake came out when like we stepped into college,
yeah,
and you're talking about Drake like Drake came out a year or two ago." I'm like,
literally.
no, no, no. What about his old stuff?
Uh-huh. Like, let's run that back.
Yeah,
I
let's
remember
let's
being
play
a
like the
senior in high
mixtape.
school and hearing like what was that song they used to like elaborate? Basically, it's "How About Now." That song like
Yeah.
is comedy to me because he in the thing he references almost the same situation. In that song, he goes basically he talks about this time he picks up this girl in the car and goes, I used to pick you up and always take you to like your the bar exam. I drove in the snow for you,
Yeah.
and then I used to get in the car, play you my mixtape, and you'd be like, oh, who's this? And I'd be like me, and then she'd be like, oh, True, and then she'd be like, can you turn this off? Can we listen to Ludacris?
Exactly.
It's just like
Exactly.
going back to those lyrics of like old school Drake and like mentioning, the times before he was popular and before he was famous to like where it's gotten now. It's interesting to see that growth. But with music and popularity, how do you generally find your music now?
I either find my music via something that I was already listening to,
Hmm.
and then the algorithm will just start playing music.
Hmm.
So like maybe I'll have my headphones on and I'm listening to something like I think that's how I found like the artist Yeet.
Hmm.
Like I found him because I was listening to something else that I liked,
Hmm.
and then I think YouTube Music just ran music that was similar to that, and I was
Hmm.
like, wait, who is this?
Hmm.
And so that's how I found most of my music. And then the other half is the social media. So there's all these people who are like posting videos of them playing, and then I'm like, wait, where I never heard this song
Right.
before. And then the same thing is over on TikTok as well, Instagram and TikTok. There's always some new artist that everybody is like playing, and then they'll drop it into their post.
Yes.
So that's like the main way that I get music. What
Okay.
about you?
I mean, for me, not too different, but I'm generally working. I'm a place of business, so a lot of it honestly is brought in by the youth. It's youth
Yeah.
going, "Hey, I want to hear this or I want to hear that." And then not undifferent to where if I play something and I happen to do it on a shuffle, I don't use a music finder when I'm working because I can't have like random stuff popping on that I don't know if it's like explicit or if it's
Yeah.
like
No, I
left
get
or
that.
right or whatever. But if I'm by myself, I might turn on something on YouTube, for example, and just
Yeah.
let the algorithm play something new. But
Yeah.
realistically, most of it comes from the athletes who I work with mentioning stuff, or me
Hmm.
hearing it in pop culture and that way. And I like a big genre. We get a lot of compliments on our playlist here of like
Yeah.
people like it or whatever the case. So
That's
that's
great.
generally the way. So that leads us into guess the lyrics. And so today I get to choose the lyrics. I'm excited. I have my first one, and I need to figure out my second one.
Guess the lyric.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, that makes the head hurt.
Mm. Okay, so we're gonna go with the first one. So here are the lyrics for you. Tell them I'm gonna need reservations for 20. I've never really been one for the preservation of money. Nah, I'd rather spend it while I'm breathing. That OVO and that XO is everything you believe in. I know.
Well, it's Drizzy, of
Okay,
course.
we gotta name the song. I'll
Run,
give it to you one more
yeah, run
time.
the lyrics.
Tell them I'm gonna need reservations for 20. I've never really been one for the preservation of money. Nah. I'd much rather spend it all while I'm breathing. That OVO and that XO is everything you believe in. I know.
Is that Crew Love? Loving the Crew?
It's Crew Love.
That was
Loving the
that was one of the
Crew.
best songs that he ever made. I
Yeah,
think that's one of the best songs that Drake
that
ever
is
made.
Crew Love.
Was
Nice.
that with The Weeknd?
Yeah,
Yeah, that
I
was
know.
one of
That's
the best
that
songs.
intro. She loving the
Yeah,
crew.
that was one of the best
Loving the
songs.
crew. Love it. Okay. Number two. Good job on that.
Thank you.
Number two is gonna be this. Let me find the lyrics I was looking for. I had some specific ones for this. And still I see no changes. Can't a brother get a little peace? It's war on the streets and the war in the Middle East. Instead of war on poverty, they got a war on drugs so the police can bother me. One more time.
Yeah, run that back. That's a lot to take.
And still I see no changes. Can't a brother get a little peace? It's war on the streets and the war in the Middle East. Instead of war on poverty, they got a war on drugs so the police can bother me.
Is that J. Cole?
Not quite. I'll give you one more guess. Think older.
Tupac?
It is Tupac. What song is it?
Oh heck no!
You
Wait.
gotta like play it in your mind and go to the chorus. Until I see no changes, can a brother get a little peace? There's war on the streets and the war in the Middle East. Instead of war on poverty, they got a war on drugs so the police can bother me.
Yeah, I've got that. I've got the lyrics in my head. Uh,
It's in what I said. The title's in what I said. I'll say it one more time. And still I see no changes. Can a brother get a little peace? It's war on the streets and the war in the Middle East. Instead of war on poverty, they got a war on drugs so the police can bother me.
um, no, I can't remember the name, but I
Okay,
know the
it's
lyrics.
Changes by Tupac.
Uh,
Yeah, so I see no changes. Yes.
yeah, I was like, that sounds like something like that. So those lyrics off the top sound like real rap.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think of real rap, I think automatically of like, if we're talking more current, like J. Cole and Kendrick, like
Yeah,
off
for
the
sure.
top.
For sure.
So I was like, okay, but if you're like older, I was like, okay, then we got to be working like a Tupac or Biggie, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't think Biggie said that.
Mm-hmm.
So Tupac was it for sure.
Exactly.
All
Bang
right,
bang.
that's pretty good.
Yes, good times. All right, good guess on the crew love. That was a good pick. Okay,
Crazy.
so Jay-Z, right now, to switch gears, is in the news because the Diddy case, which has been making waves over the past couple months, has gone, so far. There's all these allegations. There's people, and there's been these cases that came out with a lawyer named Busby, who was dealing with some of the people, and he ended up having a couple clients who said, "Oh, it was Diddy and some other celebrities. There were these other people,
Oh no.
involved." And so recently, somebody amended a case, which means the original case did not say this, and then they switched it up and amended it. So
Let me
they
rewrite it like
they
Wikipedia.
amended the case uh, and said that Jay-Z sexually assaulted a 13-year-old girl 20 years ago, essentially. So it's so tricky, right? Dealing with this situation. Anytime you talk about sexual assault, rape, anything uncomfortable like that for society, it's a really tricky situation because it always ends up in this he said, she said, and a lot of times there's no proof.
There's
You
no
can't
proof.
go back 20 years ago and figure
There's
stuff
no
out.
proof.
People are very sensitive to people who don't red flag things right away. It's like maybe they had trauma, maybe they had a threat, maybe they had X, Y, and Z. But at the same time, for the people who are being accused, it's like I'm being accused out of thin air after 20 years of this situation that there's no proof to. Like, and now my name is typically or potentially smeared, and I have to spend money on lawyers and X, Y, and Z. So where do you fall in this whole situation? Like, where do you fall on the area of, the potential truth versus it just being accusation of money grab? Where do you fall on the courts being able to try to hunt down things like this versus the statute of limitations versus
Yeah.
like what should be the case and what shouldn't be the case? What's your overall feel on this?
I just think I don't know, it's hard on both sides. Like just talking about male and female in general,
Mm-hmm.
because one, as a female, if it did happen to you, like one, it would be great if there's proof, but also there's the elevation where generally she's always believed.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the male side, it's like whether it's true or not, you're gonna get smeared.
Mm-hmm.
Like your life is gonna get smeared. You may lose your job, you may do this, you may do that. And what's tough is for the men who didn't actually do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you did do it, then you should take it how it's gonna go. It's just rough because there's an elevation here, whether it's true or not, and then there's a drop down here of whether you did it or not. So that's the first two things. But also, I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that that would not be possible considering the allegations at minimum against Diddy
Mm-hmm.
of like the things that they've said that
Mm-hmm.
he's done, and that's been proven. It's like, yeah, that's not surprising that you would have a 13-year-old at one of your parties,
Yeah.
which is what they were saying. They're like, oh yeah, Diddy invited her and all this other stuff, and um, I like I said, this all sounds like Epstein to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody who got caught in the Epstein situation now getting caught in the Diddy situation, and I don't know, you can't put it past that something like that happened if it was held in privacy. It's just now it comes out 24 years later.
Hmm.
So it's like, okay, how do you prosecute that?
Yeah. Very tricky situation. I mean, I'm not even the person who would ever go down the road of saying like it's true, it's not true, whatever the case. And I'm a person who is a very fervent believer in innocent until proven guilty. Unfortunately, a lot of times, like you said, in these cases, it's the opposite. It's like, well,
Yeah,
you're guilty until
until
you show me
proven
that it's
innocent.
otherwise. It's like,
Yeah,
no, it's innocent until proven guilty, and that's the way that the law works. But it's the whole thing just makes you uncomfortable in terms of if it happened, it's uncomfortable. If it didn't happen and you're trying to say that it happened, it's uncomfortable. It's just like it's murky business, you know? It's
yeah,
tricky. It's tricky. You can't have cameras everywhere, although the world has done a pretty good job of like making that start to become a thing.
yeah,
And it's just it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we get to a space where that even has to be a conversation where like there's potential that that could have happened, and if it didn't happen, there's somebody trying to money grab and like get notoriety from it, and
yeah.
like the truth of if you're going through that situation anonymously, why are you going through it anonymously?
Hmm.
But in the same time, in the past, you've seen people who don't go anonymous like come up missing. It's like
Yeah,
it's just very tricky. It's like it makes you think of what you see in movies and on Law and Order and some of the gnarliest stuff. So
yeah.
it's uncomfortable. It's not ideal. And I'm hopeful that the situation gets better. But I will say that I'm very interested to see what happens with the Diddy case. I am interested once we get to the spring and they start putting that on trial. I'd like to see what unfolds because
Hmm.
it's a learning lesson for a lot of people who want to get into the industries, plural. Like it's not always all it's cracked up to be. And the grass is not always greener.
No, it's not.
So speaking of which, with interesting news, Biden, who's going to be out of the presidency come this January, one of his final acts as president was pardoning his son Hunter, who has previously had a um, addiction to alcohol, and he's also been accused of some crimes that have happened overseas. But it's an
Hmm.
interesting power that a president has to literally say like this person is free of any crimes or
You're
crimes, whatever the
absolved.
case. Yeah.
You're
So
absolved of
Obama did the
responsibility.
same thing at the end of his presidency with a few people,
Hmm.
and this one obviously has made headlines because it's his son, right?
Yeah,
And so most people would feel that anybody would do that for their son.
yeah,
Anybody, any loving parent would like make sure their son is out of harm's way if they had the power to do so. And I would argue that there's not a lot of people who I know who wouldn't,
yeah.
for their son. But it is such an interesting case to have that kind of power and just go, I have the ability to just snap my fingers and make it happen. It shows the humanness, in the rankings.
Yeah.
Sometimes we look at a president like they are not like the rest of us. Sometimes we look at a
Non-human.
superstar, in
Yeah,
sports
like a
or a
non-human.
musician and go like they're not like the rest of us. Like Taylor Swift isn't like us. LeBron James isn't like us. People feel that way by and large, but those moments just show you it's actually quite the opposite.
Yeah.
It's like no, people have the same exact feels, they have the same exact missteps, they have the same exact trip ups, same exact demons and same exact successes.
Mm.
So, all in all, I don't have a really big opinion on it because I don't know all the details. I'm not in the mix with what Hunter did or didn't do. It's just to point out it's such an interesting thing for topic of conversation. Like,
Yeah.
for me, it brings back that concept of just humanness, like how relatable actually people could be if they chose to be.
Yeah.
When you see stuff heading into the different presidencies we've had, where there's like the debate over racism and how things are happening with police brutality and how things are happening with what happens in the White House and homelessness and the separation of everything. It's like to be able to have connectivity, to be able to have cohesiveness, to be able to have connectivity. We want to try to make sure that there's relatability. There
Hmm.
has to be things that are relatable and things that can connect. So that's the thing for me. How do you feel about it?
Uh, I just think it's interesting. I mean, you're trying to figure out like what the family dynamic is, right? Because everybody's family setup is completely different, and maybe you're looking and you're like, have you always done this for your son?
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody knows this,
Right.
right? Have you always not allowed your son to go through hard things
Right.
or to push through? Like, have you always saved him? Have you always put the cape on,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the piece, like that family piece that nobody can really answer. And it's like, well, maybe you've always done this. So
Right.
then you just continue. He's gotten in trouble in school and you saved him, and he's done stupid things and you've always saved him. So if that's the case, then that's what you do normally. I'm not saying that it's right,
Right.
but once again, there should be some sort of consequence or something that you go through to make sure that you're not on this path where we end up here and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna absolve you.
Right.
And maybe this has happened a lot,
Right.
which is the frustrating part.
Yeah.
Family
Yeah.
dynamics.
Same page. Same page. So for that, I mean, it is what it is at this point, but it'll be interesting. As I watch more of, I don't really watch the news too much per se, like the actual news stations, but just as I hear news and learn about, what's happening in the world,
Mm,
it's it's an interesting space to be a part of right now with AI, with the transition of things, with we've gotten away from how things used to be in the past, even before you and I were born, where it was like
yeah.
you had one home phone that everybody calls, you go out, you do your thing, bad stuff happens occasionally, but by and large, if people trust you, go outside of the house, you'll come back fine, we'll see
Yeah.
you that night. And now there's so much press, so much attention, so much like, I gotta have it now, I gotta see you now, I gotta know what's going on now, for your safety, for my well-being, for my mental health, all these things. And it transitions me into the business side of things. So crypto, you and I on this podcast, we talk frequently about decision making, as it pertains to finances, how
Mm,
people can make better decisions with their finances and give themselves more comfort as it pertains to trying to be financially free or trying to have,
yeah.
a budget and things like that. But now you see this big shift again happening now that we have a new president coming. You've seen crypto go from here to here, right? And I remember when crypto came out, it was just like NFTs, it was just like all this other stuff where people were
Mm,
like, no, don't do it. It's not real money, it's phantom money type
it's
situation,
fake.
which there's a lot of people who probably still feel that way. But
Yeah.
right now you're seeing this big jump,
Yeah.
and it shows how things shift based on comfort with who's running the country, right?
Yeah.
That's like literally when you see these big swings. The real estate market, swings all the time.
Hmm.
The stock market swings all the time, but
Yeah.
like absolutely when it comes to financial things and taxes and what's going to happen with people's money and their financial status, you see that a lot with the shift of the presidency, right?
Mm.
So where are you at right now with the interest of, regular dollars, cash and the value of that, like cash dollar bills, credit cards, crypto, stocks, bonds, like where do you see yourself allocating your own stuff? And then where would you recommend others allocate their stuff?
Um, we can start off with crypto because it's pretty advanced. Like as far as crypto, if you can understand how to use a cold storage, which is the key to crypto, having something where you can take it off of a ledger, where you can take it off of Kraken, where you can take it off of Coinbase,
Mm-hmm.
where you can take it off of crypto.com,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you can take your funds from the ledger, pull it off, or from whoever's the holder, and you can pull it into your own cold storage, I'd say definitely start to put at least 10% into crypto. I mean, it's been proven it's going to move now. I'm still talking about like a Bitcoin and Ethereum, maybe one or two others, maybe Algo or something like that, but you don't want to go to too many. You don't want to be like, "Oh, I'm about to go through all of these different coins."
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first part. If you understand how to protect crypto, then go buy crypto, right? But the other piece is obviously the stock market, obviously your S&P 500. Pick a few stocks that you like and be okay with their fluctuation. And then obviously if you can or if you're really interested, it's real estate. But as I look at it, I think stock appreciation goes above real estate.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you look at most people who are like really, really rich, they put a majority of their money into the stock market, and then there's a smaller percentage that goes into real estate,
Mm-hmm.
smaller percentage that goes into businesses. That's a huge thing for me. But as far as cash value, down every day. Like the US dollar is down every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's your job as a consumer to have some money because they tell you ridiculous things. If you listen to rich people, they tell you don't save, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, don't save, blah blah. I'm like, that's a lie because you people are buying houses cash. So
Mm-hmm.
people are saving.
Mm-hmm.
I say save a certain amount so you can live comfortably for 6 months or a year. And then after that, you need to minimum be investing more. So I'd say invest a pretty good amount of your money into the stock market. And then if you're into real estate, take some of your money and drop it into real estate.
Yeah, for me, I would say the hard and fast rule of investment needs to be do not invest in stuff you do not understand. And so a lot of people will take that as, oh, I don't understand crypto, so I'm not going to invest. I don't understand the stock market, so I'm not going to invest. The message there is educate yourself. That's the message. Educate yourself. Like, decide you are
Learn to
going
do
to
it.
learn about it. It's like the same as like, oh, well, I don't understand like addition and subtraction, so I guess I'm not gonna live in the world. It's like educate yourself on addition and subtraction so you can be a part of the mix. But when it comes to crypto, I got into crypto lightly, probably we're talking 6, 7, 8 years ago, and
Yeah.
honestly, I didn't really touch it. Once I got it in there, I just left it, and it shot all the way down. And just like the stock market, I left it, and I don't panic. And I'm like, because I'm only gonna put in money in things that I know I could lose,
Yeah.
whether it's stock market, whether it's crypto. Really those two things, stock market and crypto. I'm only gonna put in money that I'm like, if I lost that, I would not be broken,
Yeah.
right? So I'm gonna have a little bit of cash, a little bit of stuff in real estate would be ideal, and then your stock market, and then your crypto, and then you can even go beyond that. You can go deeper, stocks, bonds,
Mm.
IRAs. And if you're a person who wants to get in the NFT game and that kind of thing, do that. I don't understand NFT and don't put in the time and effort to
I
understand it,
wouldn't do it.
so I'm not in the mix. Like, I'm
Wouldn't
not
do it.
paying money to buy, a digital picture of something. That's me. But other people, they might crush it, and if they do, I'm clapping for them. But that's not me.
Yeah.
For me, even crypto is a little bit of a risk and a little bit of a hezzy, but like I said, I'm only going to put in something that I know that I could lose and be okay with. So,
Mm.
again, the biggest messaging that I would give to people out here from a financial game is, A, make sure you educate yourself. Don't just take our word for it. Go educate yourself. If you don't feel like, no, rich people, da da da, go survey 10 rich people. Pull up on the street, survey 10 rich people. Go get inside of a bank, and go survey 10 rich people and
Mm.
ask them, what are you doing? What did you do before you were rich?
Yeah.
If you decide you want to be rich. For me, that's not really the goal. The goal is like financially comfortable, have the things you want to enjoy, and then be able to continue to help others and build business.
Mm.
And that's the way that for me, I'm going about it. Like, I want to try to make sure there's things that do appreciate because I just like appreciation. I like appreciation of an athlete. I like appreciation of a relationship. I like appreciation of a financial gain, whatever the case. I like to
Mm.
see it go up and up and up. For me, that's a beautiful thing. So that's what I would recommend. And as far as crypto goes, like, if you're gonna get in, now would be the time to get in. Right now it's on the upswing. So if you're gonna get in, put in your little $10, $100, $1,000, whatever it is for you. Right now it's on the upswing. So I would recommend going in now before it gets too high, and then you catch it on the
Yeah.
downswing.
And I think also with Trump being elected, he said something like he wanted to be the biggest crypto country in the world.
Hmm.
So I think he's about to start putting funding behind it. So I think crypto is even going to go even higher. It's just people need to understand, like, to me, the interesting part of crypto is like you need to be able to kind of deal with the stock market first before we even get to crypto because stock market swings 1 to 10%.
Hmm.
Crypto swings like 1 to 100%.
Right.
And it can happen in a way shorter amount of time. It can happen in an hour or
For
two.
sure.
In a stock market, it usually happens over months and
For
years.
sure.
So I think if you can kind of build a temperament to deal with the swings of the stock market, then you're better able to deal with the swings of crypto,
I was
which I
working I
think
was
people don't
working with a
understand.
client. I was working with a client 2 weeks ago who literally put in, I think they said $25,000 in a crypto a while back,
Yeah.
and they added, chipped away, and got all the way up to 90K they put in.
Mm.
And then in this last couple of years, it dropped all the way down to 15. It went from 90 to 15. And then they said 3 days ago it was at 99, and the next day it was at 95. Next day it was at 98. Next day it was at 90. Like, there's like crazy
The
fluctuations
swings
in
are
it. Yeah.
insane. Yeah.
So you got to make sure you get in on the low end and or on the upswing. So every day you wait, if you're a person who wants to get into it, if you don't want to get into it, I understand. If you want to wait on education, no problem. But if you want to get in, I wouldn't wait. Put your little $10 in, start educating yourself. Like, most people can figure out how to make $10 happen and not worry about it over a
Yeah.
year's time. So
That's
that's the
crazy.
recommendation.
90K. Yeah, you got to be willing to deal with some fluctuation because I've had multiple crypto coins and have seen them way up and drop way down, and you got to be okay with the swing. And once again, you got to know why you're doing it.
Right.
My goal is to whatever that goal is, right?
Hmm.
If I'm investing in the S&P, I expect it to go up whatever 10 to 12%, and
Right.
when it drops, I know that generally it's going to come back up. If
Right.
I'm buying these stocks, I expect them to pay me.
Right.
So even if they go down, it's a benefit to me because I get to buy them at a cheaper price and they're still going to pay me. I'm going to
Right.
get paid more. So know why you're going to get into something instead of just being like, I'm going to jump in because everybody's jumping in.
Yeah,
You don't know how to deal with the movements and you don't have a good reason to keep it.
for sure.
So then you just get frustrated.
For sure. 100% the last part. All right, my people. That's what we got for you today. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your life. If you want to subscribe, make sure to hit the subscribe button. You can find us on YouTube, Business Relationship Sports, CA and KJ. Hit us up on Instagram. See you soon.
Let's go.